So thank you for joining us today. Again, my name is Jody Hammer, and I am the Global Career Services Specialist as part of the Global Reentry Program with NPCA. And I'm thrilled to be here with you today to talk about the topic of jobs in the gig economy. And I know a lot of people have heard about what the gig economy is, or maybe they've heard the name of it, but really don't know. So we're going to be going through both what exactly is the gig economy, and then what kinds of jobs might exist that could perhaps help you in the meantime while you're doing your job search. As you know, an RPCV and evacuee, funds have kind of run out probably in many ways, or are running out, and so you're looking probably for some creative ways to supplement, augment your income, or provide you with ample income while you are doing your long-term job search if you're seeking a specific position. So I'm thrilled to be here with you. And we're just going to dive right in. I think most of you have heard my spiel already. I am an RPCV, also having served in Ecuador from 94 through 97. Had worked in Peace Corps headquarters for about 12 years, running the RPCV Career Center there. And now I'm very fortunate to be on board with NPCA, helping with their global reentry program. So it's an honor for me to be here with you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. All right. So I have one of my favorites, of course. I love, the word clouds, right? And I talk a lot about this with people when we talk about the job search and taking the job description and dumping it into your favorite word cloud, app, and seeing what comes out and what comes up on that. And it just helps you to know what important words there are. I found this one online and really liked it, describing the gig economy. And these are all words that are associated with it, right? And the larger the word, the more prominent it is in relation to gig economy. And so I think it does a good job, though, of describing kind of what we're going to be talking about here in many ways. So what is a gig economy? I have a very brief video that we're going to try and see if it will play within here. It's embedded within the presentation, and if it does, great. If it doesn't, that's just fine. I can totally explain, and we'll have some other graphics that will come up as well to help explain. But let's cross our fingers and see if it works here. So what is a gig economy? Oh, so sorry. Why did that? Let me get it back to where it was. So sorry about that.
Sorry, Jody, I don't think the audio is working for participants.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah.
It's not working at all. You can't hear it. Okay. That's fine. Yeah. Shucks. I was hoping we were going to be able to actually play that one, but that's okay. Yeah, I apologize for that. Sometimes it works, technology, and sometimes it doesn't. But we will just go ahead and continue because I have a lot of graphics that do also describe what the gig economy is.
And we'll put the link to this video in chat.
Yeah, if you will, that would be great. Thank you so much. And we'll just go ahead and I'll start presenting again here. Instead of hearing it from them. They talked about, gig employees and gig economy being, those short-term gigs, and gig comes from actually originally the music scene, right? Where a band plays a gig somewhere, a short-term, one-time, one-off, and then they go somewhere else and do another performance. That's where you get the gig, right? These short-term gigs are what make up the gig economy. So it's short-term types of employment, right? And there's a lot of different types of gig employers and employment opportunities, right? And I have a couple here that are shown. There's freelancers, or these are kind of the types, right? So you have freelancers who might do freelance, media or photography or something like that. You have consultants or project-based, workers. So those might be contracted for or secured for a short period of time, maybe to consult on their area of expertise. Whereas the employer maybe couldn't bring them on for full time, it would be too expensive, and they wouldn't need them for the long term, but for very short term types of things, or sometimes it's a little bit longer term as well, but it's a set defined or defined period of time. Temporary or on-call workers, these are very, very popular, and it might be some kind of, it could be things that are, as easy as maybe it's walking dogs, or an on-call. Oh, when there's a disaster that happens, they send out, they send out FEMA, workers or other contractors or other temporary on-call people who will go out. So they work on an as-needed basis. Oftentimes that's associated with emergencies or, special periods of time where there's a lot of demand for something, but it's not always the case. And then you have independent contractors, right? They're often, gig employees are often called, independent contractors. They might take a specific contract that's really in line with maybe their passion area. And what's great about the gig economy and people who are taking gigs is you can really pick those that are you're more passionate about or you're more interested in, because there are so many different opportunities to explore. So that can be really great as well. And then, so all of those are gig employees, that describes it. But a little more on this, who are they specifically? And I like this graphic as well, and I've given credit where credit is due. Gig workers, as they're called, right? Sometimes, sometimes people have a full-time job, and they do gigs on the side, right? Either to fulfill maybe their own satisfaction, maybe they want a little extra money to supplement what they're doing. Maybe they want to eventually work into that field full time. So they're doing gig work to get some more experience in it, because gig work can absolutely and should go on your resume as well. So there's so many reasons why, right? And others, maybe they do a job because of the benefits and the good benefits they have. They're not so passionate about it, but that can help them step into more of their passion area and feel more of a sense of reward. So those are all, goals that can be associated with, with gig work, and it can fund special expenses. Maybe you're saving for a car or a special international vacation or going back to your country of service. That kind of work could be really good for, just helping you maybe save extra money. So also hobby, that's a really huge one. People who have a specific hobby and they're able to get paid for it, right? Which is great, right? I always think to photography, photographers, there's a lot of people that will do, family photography, or they specialize in, newborn or weddings or whatever, profiles, your headshots, and it's a hobby of theirs. And again, it's on the side, and they can make money on it. So that's great. The third one here, the stopgap gig worker, I think that's a really powerful one, especially for you all, the returned Peace Corps volunteer, the evacuee population. You can pick up this gig to fill the space between what you were doing before, your Peace Corps service, which for many of you was cut short because of COVID-19, unfortunately, right? And you were thrust into this environment, back into to a country where the pandemic is still going on and it's still not, normalized. But oftentimes you can pick up some type of gig economy work, right? To fill that gap. And again, please don't feel that pressure to fill that gap. Certainly you might have the economic pressure that you're feeling, and I totally get that. But if you're in a position where it's like, oh my gosh, I have this 4-month gap on my resume, what am I going to do that's going to, prevent me from getting a job? Absolutely not, especially when it happened right at the pandemic, because you are not alone. There are so many people who were either laid off from their jobs, or who, have had to reduce to be able to fulfill family obligations and take care of children who no longer are in school, things like that. They may have had to quit their job or haven't been able to take a job. So this stopgap, it's great and it's wonderful and you can fill it, but please don't feel like, oh, I'll never get a job because I have this 4 months or 5 months and on my resume now. That's just not the case. And then you have career gig workers. You have some people, and I'm sure, if any of you know people who basically do gig work, they've been contractors, short-term types of things, drop that in the chat box if you can, just to let us know, like somebody, what kind of work they do, just to give others ideas. I think some of the best ideas come from the audience. So if any of you do know people who've done gig work, for a prolonged period of time, because we're going to talk about a little bit later as well, some of the benefits, the many benefits to the worker, the gig worker, it provides you so much flexibility and so many other things that you might be deciding to either juggle multiple gigs, right? Employment opportunities, or, just have that become kind of your, your full-time, made up of many smaller part-time types of opportunities, job, which can give you, a lot of freedom and such, which again, we'll talk about later. So, and then part-time gig work, certainly, people, you might be doing that, you might be doing it part-time. Maybe you're looking to work part-time right now because you're focusing on school, or getting your graduate degree, right? Higher education or whatnot, something else, or pursuing some certification program. There's many great certificate programs now available for RPCVs and the evacuees, and many of them are free to go through. And so you maybe are taking time to do something like that and increase your education. And so on the side, while you're doing that, you probably have some time, but maybe not full time, to take a full-time job. And so you can do gig work to augment your what you're studying or what you're doing and your income and such. So do we have any questions so far, Dan? Are there any? I don't have the chat box up right now because I've got a lot on my screen here doing the screen share.
A couple comments, no questions yet.
Okay, no problem. We'll keep going. But again, as a reminder, please put any questions that you do have into the chat box, and we will answer as many as we can during the course of the time that we have here together. Okay. So let's talk for a moment on, some of the reasons for working in the gig economy, right? People who decide to take on these short-term, gigs. I love this infograph, and again, credit is given on the below where it came from, but it was part of this Economy Wealth Institute report, and it talks about 48%, autonomy and control, right? Talk about complete control of your work, right, and your work environment, because typically these are typically things that are done distance-wise, right? You're not in an office. So you're making your own schedule, and a lot of people really like that, right? That self-control, not having to go in and sit in an office and maybe with a team that you're not so jazzed about or whatever. It just gives you so much autonomy. 19% earning while seeking a better job. So, keep that earning coming in, because as we all know, there are expenses that keep going, right? You have rent, you have groceries, and that's not cheap. And especially, you're probably getting adjusted to life back here in the States after your Peace Corps country, where things were probably quite a bit cheaper. So certainly earning, while you're looking for maybe a better job, a full-time, gig that might have some other benefits, which we'll be discussing as well. 48% do it for balancing career and family needs, right? That's at least one of theirs. And people, this obviously doesn't add up to 100%, right? Because many people do it for multiple reasons. So 48% think it and agree that it can better help you balance your, career and family life, right? You can do these things. Maybe you can do them more late at night when your children are in bed, or, whatever, doing what needs to be done. And this, I think, is really big right now with the incredible stress that is on, people balancing children and trying to, take care of them, and yet, do their full-time job or their part-time job or whatever. And so taking sometimes this kind of work can be a little more conducive to that. 22%, only way to make an income. And that is, again, those that, are maybe doing this, this is all that they're doing, right? They're doing gig work work in the gig economy as their sole source of income, probably juggling many different jobs, but yes, exactly. And then 55%, making extra money on the side. I mean, the majority of people, right, are definitely looking at gig economy, work as, hey, I can make some extra money. Who doesn't want extra money, right? What would you spend your extra money on? You get that idea and you then can work toward it and say, let me do a little bit of, contracting, gig economy kind of work, whatever it is, and tap into my skill set or my passion or even just my interests, right? To be able to make some more money. So those are some of the big reasons why employees, right, want to do what draws them to gig work. So employers, on the other hand, employers really have grown to like the gig economy. It has exploded. I mean, since 2015, the percentage of people doing gig work has just, I mean, it's totally exploded, and it's a much larger percentage than it used to be. I saw one stat that indicated that 30, and there were several different stats, so I didn't want to just choose one, but one of the stats did say about 30% of workers in today's workforce are doing this, and certainly within the millennial population, right? They are all about this, and I think they're so into this and really are drawn to gig economy because of that flexibility, and they can it really meets their need, right? Their needs. But other reasons why employers do like it, there's not a long-term contract, no, right? So unlike in your regular jobs, you get hired, and it takes a while, maybe can take a while to even get on. And so certainly they sometimes they can, if they're completely at will, they could terminate you for whatever reason, but it's definitely a longer process usually, and it's a longer commitment, right? You're bringing them on, you do all that work to get them on board, you don't want them to leave right away, right? So with the gig economy work, there's no long-term commitment, and it's come and go as as needed. So maybe an employer, like a small NGO or something, each year they have some big annual event where they need expertise in ABC, whatever it is, right, with putting on their conference. So maybe they bring on an event planner to actually help organize, facilitate, implement that event, and then they're done. And so there's no long-term, right, commitment. So they can also save resources. So although right now we're all pretty much teleworking, right? Most people are teleworking, but like office space, right? They don't have to have a place to put the extra person, right? If they're doing work in this way, they generally are doing that remote, and so they don't have that to worry about. Also benefits. Now it says here no benefits, but sometimes there are benefits, and you're going to hear about some opportunities later, including contact tracing, and in some of those kinds of opportunities there might be benefits even, which is great. But more, I would say it's more common than not that there aren't benefits, right? If you're doing work in the gig economy, it's more like contracting, right? With federal government, contractors generally don't have, the benefits, the federal benefits, things like that. So, but sometimes they do. So good to point that out as well. The employers can bring on, experts that probably would be, or definitely would be too expensive for them to pay the entire year. But if there's a 1 month period or 2 month period or whatever it is, they could meet the expectations, right, of this, very specialized, very, more expensive, more, a higher level person for 2 months without a problem, right? But not for 12 months out of the year. So that can be really helpful. And they can find and specifically hone in on those jobs that they're, that are most, that these jobs that they have and the best fit, right, for each of the jobs. Because when you bring on somebody in a role and then you're expecting them to do various things, they're going to have probably some strengths and some weaknesses. So they're going to be really great at some parts and maybe not so great at others. And so when you do the, gig work and you bring on somebody, you could have a specialized person for this aspect, the marketing aspect, right? Then you could have a specialized person who's, really database driven, and they're an expert in database management who could do those little parts of it to get the best of all worlds, if that makes sense. And so those are some of the reasons why employers like gig economy workers. I'm curious. We have a small enough group. I'm curious if there's anybody in this group who has done gig economy work in the past, and if there is, if you can just drop your maybe what kind of work you were doing, that would be great. I would love to share about that. So I have some sample gig economy jobs listed here, and there are so many others. I mean, these are just a few, right? So Uber and Lyft is like that's probably one of the most clear-cut gig economy jobs, right? You are available when you want. You use your car. You go and you get the jobs from an app, right? From Uber or Lyft in this case, and you take the job. You agree, you commit to do that job, and it's a short term, and you do whatever that is, and then you can take your break whenever you want. You can go a month without having any if you want. I mean, it's completely up to you, right? And how much you want to augment your income, right? So that is the ultimate example, right? So and I've known actually RPCVs who have had cars. Now, not all RPCVs and evacuees, certainly when you're just getting back, or if you're living in a very urban area, you probably won't have a car because it's more of a pain and more of an expense, to drive it and pay for parking and all of that. But for some folks who are in an area where a car is pretty par for the course, and you end up having one, you certainly could consider, that as an option. Another possibility would be a photographer, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Doing photography, whatever kind, or any kind of media work, right? Graphic design, website creation. Some people are so good at that, and it's super easy for you to help somebody set up a website. And so you put yourself out there as, hey, if you need help setting up a website, happy, and get some work in that area. That could be good for your income and such as well. IT support oftentimes is, where you have somebody who's, sometimes they have companies that certainly you have companies that have, what is it, nerd, the IT one that has the word nerd, I think, in it. But you could do that yourself instead of being an employee of, said organization. So, but other ones that are creative too, and I think are especially common right now, are things like grocery deliverers, right? In our reality today, there are many people who have some kind of pre-existing condition that makes it makes going out more dangerous in the pandemic. And so some of them are contracting people to, now there are some that will do the delivery as well, right, from the grocery store, right? Others are having people actually go and do their shopping for them. Maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's someone they know through someone else, right? But again, that is an option, and can be, one to earn some extra money in. Dog walkers. Now, these, dog walkers have been around, for a long time, but it's more common now to have people, advertise their own and, tap into that gig economy and get those kinds of jobs. That can be a very flexible one that, works well with people who are animal lovers, right? So there's kind of something for everyone in many ways. And then the last two, the small group pod educator, and this is one that I want to spend a few minutes talking about, because it is another one that's arisen because of COVID-19. Because of the situation in many areas, we've already heard that our children will not be going back to school. They'll be doing 100% distance learning for, in my case with my daughter, it's for the first 2 quarters. So that takes you through January. And that's a real hardship on parents, especially, single parents or parents who don't have that ability to be, working in the house and maybe, limiting their hours or what have you. So what some people are doing is they're organizing a small group of maybe kids, maybe in their neighborhood, a handful, very small group of kids, and hiring somebody as an educator or as a tutor, right? The pod, and they're coming up with these educational pods. So it's a small group of kids that are going to be basically learning together, and somebody who's a teacher, or somebody who has taught in Peace Corps. How many of us did teaching in Peace Corps? Many were teachers in Peace Corps, and you can certainly get these kinds of jobs without being a formalized, teacher, right? These are
Hey,
actually
Jody,
yeah.
The question about the pod educators here from
Yeah.
Mcdonald. Just a good question. Who are the hiring entities with those, as you're seeing those jobs pop up? Are they individual families, or are they companies who are hiring?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Who's doing the hiring there? That's the question.
Yes. The hiring is what I've seen so far is more individuals. And so one of the things I remember, and some of you may have seen this on the Facebook group for COVID-19. There was yeah, it was on that or in LinkedIn, and a person, Henry from out west, he had indicated that he knew several parents, several people who were trying to do this in the like San Francisco area, in the Bay Area, but certainly it's being done. There's a lot of people who are thinking about doing it here in the DC metro area as well. What I would recommend that you do in order to tap into those folks is first connect with your local affiliate group, because the affiliate groups are well connected in the community, and chances are they, like us, are hearing about people who are saying, I need to find somebody. I cannot be 8 hours a day or 6 hours a day, you know, standing over my child, helping them, trying to help them with this distance learning they're getting and whatever. So a lot of it is individual so far, but I would put a message out, if you're interested in doing this, put a message out to, like, the NorCal is the group that's out in, you know, Northern California, but you can actually go to NPCA, our website, and Dan, maybe you can throw up in the comments there in the chat box the link to the affiliate group listing so that people can easily get in touch with their appropriate affiliate groups. Check that way, put the word out to your friends if you're on Facebook or whatever you're on, like putting a message out, you know, saying something like, I'm seeking to, you know, potentially work with a small pod of, you know, children in, you know, during, you know, COVID to, you know, augment or whatever, you know, to you know, that people are looking for these alternative education, you know, settings. And people, I'm sure, will be able to refer you to other people as well. And it's fairly lucrative, actually, from what I've heard. I've seen some that are, now I don't know how many, I'm sure it depends on how many kids are in it, because each child is paying a certain amount, but I was seeing salaries of, you know, $20 to $50 an hour for a small, you know, working with a small group of kids. Yeah, and FYI, for folks who are in California, they have the special credentialing. It's like an emergency credentialing type of thing, where if you were a Peace Corps volunteer and you did your you worked, and you can verify and have it, you know, verified that you taught during your which a lot of us did, right? Taught during your service, you can actually qualify to get this emergency credential for California, at least. I don't know how it transfers to other states. I've had that question come up, but I'm not sure, actually. It depends. What they said is it's state to state. You'd have to look at it, but that could be, you know, something to consider in the, you know, in the time. And what I'm hearing is a lot of people are wanting to do this outdoors if possible, if it's in person, right? But some of it might be online. But I think the concern is, you know, a lot of the schools are telling people that they're going to, they're saying, okay, we're going to have 6 hours of structured learning. And it's, you know, 6 hours for a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old, you know, is really tough, right? To expect them to sit there and listen online and then apply. So they're looking for alternatives where they might bring together, maybe it's, I don't know, 3 or 4 kids, and you help them with their, I mean, there is a, you know, there's a curriculum, but helping them, or maybe it's changing the curriculum and doing a completely separate one. I don't know. Some might want more, you know, experiential and go completely off the, you know, what they're providing. But you can get the word out there through that. Just, and, you know, same with, you know, your LinkedIn connections, whatever, just posting something saying, hey, I'm looking to get connected with people who are, you know, potentially considering bringing someone on, you know, for a, you know, pod teacher, or however you want to, you know, phrase it. Do also some Googling on it. I mean, that's always my favorite recommendation, right? Google, you know, pod, education pod teachers, you know, job postings, whatever, and see where I'm sure that some of the different, you know, job boards are probably even people are putting things up there as well. So, okay. I hope that helps with that question. Are there any other questions, Dan, here that have come up?
Yeah, good question from Elena Jody on how to structure your resume for someone who's done a lot of gig work or part-time work with simultaneous jobs. What do you recommend for her?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question because you don't want to look like a job skipper. And sometimes when you put these short-term gigs down all in a row, then it makes you look like a job skipper and you're not, right? So for situations where you were doing another job and then you were doing this on the side, I would probably have a separate category after your, regular job, right? Your regular like professional experience posting, listings of your your whatever full-time or your more substantial jobs, and then maybe have another header that might be titled contract work or freelance or any of those titles that I was using earlier. I think you could certainly put those together. Now, sometimes those might be more related to the jobs that you're going for, right? And in that case, you might, and it depends on the situation, you'd have to look at it and see what makes sense, but you might even put that up before your, other job experience, depending on what kind of, things it was, if it was, if it's really related and would be impressive and really show that specialized experience, you could put it up there. Or you could include maybe reference to it in your key qualifications, and that's oftentimes the first header that I recommend with when you're doing your resume, key qualifications where you have kind of those punchy bullets. So you could certainly put some of those things in there as well. Okay, great. So let's finish up. So the small group, yeah, the pod educator on that, like I really want you to take a look at that if you are interested, because I think a lot of you would qualify and it could be a good source of income if that's something that's of interest to you. And the last one, contact tracers. And this is really, this is something that's come out of COVID-19, right? And these are the people who are, on the front line in terms of doing the investigation, right? Like talking to people who, have been exposed and then who they've been exposed to, and helping to track so that you can get a better idea of exposure and all of those things. And we're actually fortunate. We do have, and I want to, I'm thinking Aurora or Megan, if we have both of them, they were going to try to be on here. So if either of you are on right now, what I'm thinking is you could spend a little bit of time first to introduce yourself, of course, and where you served and how you heard about contact tracing, and how you got involved in it, and what is it really? What exactly do you do? So is Megan or Aurora on by chance yet? They were going to try to join the last part of this. Let me just see.
I'm here.
Oh, great.
Yeah, this is Megan.
Megan, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your experience. If you can maybe start just with, introducing yourself and how you got involved with contact tracing and where you're doing it.
Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Mcdonald, and I am an EPCV from Morocco. And I was stage 101, so cohort 101, and I served about 7 months. And yeah, I was evacuated same as everyone else in March. And I, to be honest, like was in kind of the same boat, very kind of desperate, but also, just like emotionally drained, and just didn't really want to put in a ton of work in the beginning into like finding, a huge long-term job, because I was still worried about, like whether I was going to, reinstate or not. And just like could not see myself mentally going into like a full-time job, not like those were available. But yeah. And so this came about, I heard about contact tracing because I've never worked in public health before, but I have like my sister-in-law is a nurse for UCSF, and she has heard about contact tracing. And I was like, well, what else do I want to do? I want to do something that's going to be able to kind of like move along this pandemic and kind of serve as the best as I can. And so I, did a lot of like research, and I applied to a lot of different like contact, because there's tons of public health agencies and companies and like research programs that want contact tracers. But unfortunately, sometimes for the public health agencies or like these certain research companies, they want someone who has a background in public health, which like totally
Wow.
makes sense. But I didn't. And so I needed to have a program that would really teach me everything from the beginning. Like I'm a beginner. And so then someone in my cohort posted about how they were a recruiter for AmeriCorps, and AmeriCorps is like something that a lot of our RPCVs vote kind of straight into, because I don't know, the organization values are similar and stuff.
Sure.
And they have a good rapport with Peace Corps. So I applied, and it wasn't a big deal that I like didn't have a background in public health. It really was. I really think that it was like the fact that I was in Peace Corps that moved me along through the process faster than other people that applied that didn't have Peace Corps on their resume. And yeah, within like literally 2 weeks, not even, I got a response back saying, they were interested in me, and then I accepted, and I went through an extensive amount of training, probably like 3 weeks worth of training, and a lot of modules about like very specific things about the job. And then yeah, so the AmeriCorps works with Colorado. So we work with the Colorado Department of Public Health, and we basically are like contractors for them. And so I work with both people who work for the Colorado Department of Public Health and also just like fellow AmeriCorps Vista volunteers. And so my contract is 8 weeks. And so very short, like literally like about 2 months. And with this you can get 8 weeks, 9 weeks, or 10 weeks, and that's it. So really kind of cycling people through. And yeah, I mean I like what I do. It's definitely a great job for like during COVID, just because it's obviously remote, so it's safe. But it also like I've learned so much more about the virus, and I feel like a lot more safe because of it, because I kind of know, you know, okay, like if I do this, like I know for a fact that will be spread, because 95% of my calls are people who did this, and so I've been able
Wow.
to be like an educator for people in my community as well, an educator for my friends, in addition to like helping people and kind of tracking the virus in Colorado. So after my contract is up, I actually hope to find other kind of public health agencies and apply for them now that I have this experience, and hope
Right.
that I can get it. So yeah.
That's great. So Megan, in your situation, it was through AmeriCorps. You're actually an AmeriCorps member or
Yeah.
working with?
So I'm an AmeriCorps volunteer. We literally had to
Gotcha.
do the same oath as Peace Corps, like in the beginning, which was lots of chills. I was like, wow, last time I did this was in a tent in Rabat. But yeah, so yeah, I actually officially AmeriCorps, which is cool, because although I'm just a Vista member, so it's only 2 months, I still
Right.
get the benefits as an AmeriCorps volunteer would. Like I get an education benefit. Um,
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah,
Regardless of how long you're a Vista, that's awesome.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely not as much as it would be if I was like a 2-year volunteer, but I do get the cred of like being part of AmeriCorps,
Right.
and just like I'm able to be tapped into like that networking group in the similar ways Peace Corps, which is awesome. Like a lot of people can't say they've done Peace Corps and AmeriCorps within a year.
Right. At most. That's great, Megan. Thank you so much for sharing. And I tell you, going back to a point that you made about, that education that you've gotten, and you've kind of shared that with your friends and family. I would love to tap into your brain dump about like how you've seen it be transmitted in the majority of the cases. Maybe you can share that with the COVID support group as a little post or to me personally.
Yeah, no, of course. As I said, I'm not like a public health expert, but like
Right.
I have been able to answer a lot of people's questions just based on the like resources that I have.
That's great.
And also, so for anyone here who's interested, they are still hiring. They go through a lot of different like cohorts every few months. Right now we're on a lull because we have like so many people, but I'm pretty sure that like this is going to be something that the CDPHE is going to continue to want. And so I can post the link. I don't know where you want me to post it, but I can post the link if anyone's interested.
If you post it in the chat box, we always encourage people before they leave this this webinar, just download the chat box, which you just go to the little 3 dots in the bottom of the chat box and just click on it. It'll say, save chat. That's one way to save it. Yeah.
Okay.
Or
Awesome.
shoot it to me and I can include it in the, in the materials that we send as follow-up. So your choice.
Okay. Gotcha.
Great.
And Jody, it looks like Aurora and John are also standing by.
I saw that as well. Thank you so much. So Aurora, let's have you, thank you for being here. Another contact tracer. We'd love to hear very briefly about your own experience and how you got into it. That would be awesome. So go ahead.
Hi, so I am located in North Carolina. And when I got here, my mom was kind of watching all the COVID news. That's our like end of the day ritual and the briefings that Governor Cooper was holding. And he, in one of the briefings that I saw, mentioned the need for contact tracers, specifically ones that spoke Spanish. And since I had just gotten back from Guatemala after being evacuated, after being only there for 2 weeks. Yeah. I was like, well, I guess I might as well like maintain my Spanish skills and do like work that will hopefully help end this pandemic so that I can get back to Peace Corps. So I then went online and just searched North Carolina contact tracer, like careers, jobs, and I found one through a nonprofit that is being contracted by the state government. And so I just put in my application, and they contacted me about like a couple weeks later and then just started me right off the rip. I think I did maybe 3 days of training before they started having us make calls because they were in such need. But there has been ongoing training throughout, and as the situation has evolved, because I've been doing it since, let's see, about mid-June, we change our strategies, our procedures, and just kind of adapt and try and make the process as smooth as possible.
That's great. Wow. And I'm curious what questions we might have from the audience for you two who are the contact tracers. And then we do have one more guest speaker. We're very lucky to have John Barry with us, a consultant with NPCA, who's going to chat very briefly as well, make some comments on contact tracing. So are there any questions? Maybe just throw them in the chat box, or yeah, if you can do that, that's great. And in the meantime, why don't we go ahead and we'll introduce John. Dan, would you mind introducing John Barry for us?
I'd be very happy to. John has been working as a pro bono consultant, I should say, out of his home in Washington State, trying to find opportunities to get RPCVs, especially evacuated RPCVs, involved in the contact tracing efforts. And John himself has a long career with USAID and has just done a fantastic job reaching out to public health offices and talking to a number of very high-level positions at CDC and Indian Health Service and other local groups to find opportunities for RPCVs. And it looks like we might have one contract in the works. And John, what I'd love to hear from you is just a little bit about in all these high-level conversations that you're having. why do you continue to think that RPCVs are the perfect fit for these contact tracing needs? And then we'll mention the specific opportunity at the end.
Well, thank you, Dan. And I know that's a soft pitch question, because we heard the answer yesterday from King County. We were in on a phone call regarding a contract with King County to provide 10 RPCVs as contact tracers here in King County is Greater Seattle. And so we're going with a team approach to bring 10 volunteers in as contact tracers. And from the woman who's the head of the program here herself, she mentioned a couple of skill sets that to me just totally fall straight into the Peace Corps volunteer wheelhouse. One of the things that she said was particularly important is technical skills, being able to work with a computer, being able to work with databases and multitask, have multiple things going on at once, accurately enter information into the system, et cetera, et cetera. So for her, that technical skills were fundamental. And the other skills are just kind of classic, I think to me, classic Peace Corps skills, interview skills, being able to talk to people, being able to empathize, being able to reach across cultural barriers and perhaps language barriers. And then what she called elicitation skills, which I kind of look as just kind of keeping the conversation going. And one of the examples that, she mentioned, and I think, we can all sympathize with it, is that, when your job as a contact tracer, you're talking to people who are sick and scared, afraid, worried. And so just that empathy, human empathy and communication skills, to me, that just fell straight into the Peace Corps wheelhouse. What's interesting, which did not come out of her mouth during the whole conversation, was public health experience. That was not one of the things that she seems to think of as a super important skill. I know that, that's something that would definitely be a benefit. The other thing that would be a benefit is language skills, and particularly Spanish here, and Pacific Island languages. That's just the kind of unique need in this community. So no, I think there's just a lot of skill sets that Peace Corps volunteers can offer. But what I will say is that from the experience here in King County, they posted positions here that were paying north of $30 an hour, and they had 1,500 applicants. Of those applicants, there were, I think she mentioned 40 were shortlisted, and of those, two actually who got jobs were return volunteers. So just to kind of put the word out that, when these positions get announced at an open competition, they attract a lot of interest. And so, making sure that your resume stands out with some of those kind of skills that Megan was mentioning, I think is one way of kind of rising above the noise. I think particularly if you've got any language skills, that's going to be something you'll want to highlight. And then again, your cross-cultural skills, I think are super important and will be super valuable. So just to give you a quick overview of kind of why I got invited, it's been 2.5, 3 months ago, we started an effort to try and match evacuated volunteers with COVID tracing positions. Just as a kind of a pro bono thing, because it seemed like the right thing to do. I was evacuated in '94, and so I feel the pain. And so we just thought if we could find a way to build that match, that it would do a lot of good on both ends. It would serve both needs, the needs of these evacuated volunteers and the need for COVID tracers, both which are important. What we found was, I won't say chaos, but it's a patchwork is the most diplomatic word that I can come up with. The response to COVID is just as chaotic as you read in the newspapers. We're talking about 50 plus different approaches. Each state is going to have a different approach, and each locality can have a different approach. Some of them best practices, and some of them no practices at all. Anne Arundel County, Maryland, for some reason, they've got some good leadership there. The County Department of Health is the one that are leading it. Here in Washington State, it's King County. We had a conversation with the Washington State folks, and they seemed interested at one point, but that one kind of dropped off, and so now we're going with King County. So, they're kind of, I three big baskets of places if you're interested in a COVID tracing position that I would look. There's the direct positions, which are offered by either the state or the locality, the county, the city, wherever it is that you're located. And you can just, look on the .gov websites for where you live to find out about those. There's the foundation work. The CDC Foundation has posted a number of positions, and there are other nonprofits that do this as well. And then there's a private sector. There are body shop kind of temp agencies who are involved and who will take your resume and put you in the list. What we found from our research is that salaries can go from anywhere from $18 to $20 an hour to north of $30 an hour, almost $40 an hour, depending. So, so that's something where, you might want to look around, might want to shop around and just see who's offering a good salary package. Many of these positions are virtual, so, you don't necessarily need to physically be in the location. Another thing to look after is benefits. Some organizations, I know, for example, CDC Foundation offers a very generous package of benefits. So that's something else to consider when you're looking at these positions, is what sort of benefits do they offer. You might also want to look at how long of a commitment do they require. Here with King County, we're looking at 6 months, and a commitment for at least 4 days a week. So that's another thing to kind of look into when you're looking at the position. What we've found is that most of the folks who are placing contact tracers are going to do their own training program, because they're going to want you to know how their systems work. Sure. But there are training programs that are available for free that you can look up. The CDC has one. Johns Hopkins, is another source. There's a group called the National Associations of City and County Health Organizations, NACCHO, has one, and the Association of State and Territorial Health Organizations. So, if you just type in training for COVID contact tracers, you'll see. The Johns Hopkins CDC one tends to be the gold standard, but I think that's like 8 hours, so it's pretty serious. So that's that's kind of what we found. It's been really a kind of a bit of a struggle, but we've gotten to the point now where we're in final negotiations with King County to place 10 contact tracers. Now, this is one thing that we run into here, and so you might run into it as where you're looking. These contact tracers that we're going to be looking to hire need to be in Washington State. And that's just, I think, for administrative tax reasons, they just didn't want to have to deal with it. But it's interesting that we need to be in Washington State, but it's virtual. So, so location could matter in terms of what your options are. But I think, as you'll see, just a quick Google search, there's just a ton that's out there. We've been trying to make sense of it for 3 months now, and my head still hurts. But what I will say is the need's still there. And I do strongly believe that Peace Corps volunteers bring something unique to the table, and that, really can help match that need. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or try to. We're looking to run this program out, this pilot. We're looking for 3 different places to do a pilot, and we've made most progress out here in Seattle. I'm not sure where you're based, but we'd love to bring it to your town if we can somehow find a way to get it funded and to get these people placed. So anyway, open to your questions or your ideas.
That's great. Thank you, John. And anyone who has a question for John, just dump it in the chat box and we'll definitely share it with him. In the meantime, you read my mind. I was going to ask you, where can they find these opportunities? And you did such a great job of outlining where they can look for these kinds of opportunities, which is great. Thank you.
And I can also share with you, we have a concept note, just a little 2-pager describing what NPCA is doing, because we've been really trying to get this going operationally. I think we've all agreed that it's a great idea. Making it work on the ground has been a real challenge, but I think that from the NPCA's point of view, this is a service that we can offer to the members, and I think with particular focus on the recent evacuees. So please be in touch with NPCA. Be in touch with your local representative. There is not one, not two, but 5 different bills in front of Congress right now to place Peace Corps volunteers as COVID tracers. So, talk to your representative, tell them if they haven't signed on to one of the 5 to get on the train, and let's see if we can really roll this out on a national level. That's my big goal, is we've got it going here in King County, and, this is our effort to prove the model. And if we can make this team-based approach using Peace Corps volunteers work here in King County, I think we want to try and replicate it and blow it up and scale it up across the country.
Great, wonderful. Megan is asking, are those still going through? Megan, I'm not sure if you're referring to.
Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't been scrolling down here.
The bill,
She's
or like,
yeah.
I thought that those kind of just got a stalemate a while ago. That's what I assumed, but I didn't know that they were still being considered.
Well, along with a lot of other things on Capitol Hill that aren't moving. So yeah, but what you find is kind of the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And this one, who's going to say no to Peace Corps volunteers doing COVID tracing, right? I mean,
Right.
It's kind
a
of
logical fit.
Yeah. Do you like ice cream with your apple pie? Well, yeah, duh. So so they're out there, but there are some competing bills. So, so I think that, but it's worth a conversation with your representative just to see whether they are aware of them, and because look, we're doing this on a small scale. I've been doing this pro bono for 2 months now, and eventually we're gonna have, if we're gonna make it work, we're gonna need some money. So we found a little bit of money out here in King County, but the need is so great. We've got to think big on this one. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, John, so much. Are there any other questions, Dan? I can look to now with the chat box here. There's so many different,
Yeah, I don't see any, my Zoom crashed, so I don't have the previous chat anymore, but thank you, John. I wanted to say, I just want to say thanks to John and the guests that came on, and Jody for this topic. And I think as new gig opportunities come up, NPCA is going to be trying to provide a clearinghouse for these sorts of opportunities. And as a reminder, always look at RPCV career link as well on the peacecorps.gov website. That also has part-time opportunities in addition to mostly full-time jobs that are posted there.
And you can access that through peacecorps.gov/career link.
I was also going to say that I don't know how much our NCE is going to help with any of these positions, but sometimes there are intergovernmental contact tracing programs / positions, and so maybe NCE could help there, but in general I haven't seen that help too much, but you never know.
Yep. Good point. Good point. So I just want to, I think we'll wrap it up here. We're right about at our time anyway, and I just really appreciate John and Aurora and Megan, you coming on and sharing your personal experience. That always makes it so much more real. And thank you to everyone for joining us for this session on jobs in the gig economy. Know that you will get a follow-up email, and we'll put these resources in. If there were any resources that you have individually that you want to drop into that chat box, I can take a look at those and get those included, or you can just send them to me at careers@peacecorpsconnect.org, and we'll make sure to include some of those. So John, Aurora, Megan in particular, but anyone else that has maybe insight into anything related to what we talked about.
Awesome.
So thank you for being here, and make it a great day, and have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jody.
All
Bye.
right. Take care.
Bye.